The kitchen of the downtown restaurant was alive with noise, heat, and motion. Pots clanged, flames leapt under skillets, and the aroma of spices filled the air in a way that could make anyone's mouth water. Every chef moved with purpose, their movements precise and practiced. It was a place where every second counted and mistakes were rarely forgiven. Among all this activity, a quiet figure stood near the entrance carrying only a small notebook and a calm expression. She looked ordinary, almost invisible compared to the fast-moving professionals around her. Her clothes were simple, plain, and worn, and she didn't carry the confident swagger most new hires tried to fake in their first week. People in the kitchen glanced at her briefly and went back to their work, assuming she was just another trainee struggling to find her place. The head chef, known for his sharp tongue and high standards, noticed her immediately. He had been the kind of chef who measured people at first glance, often judging their ability before they even touched a knife. When he saw her quiet demeanor, he could almost hear the words forming in his mind. She is inexperienced. She will need guidance. That thought alone made him smirk a little. It had been a long time since he had someone he could truly challenge. He loved testing new talent, and today he decided this new girl would be his latest experiment. Walking over with deliberate steps, he stopped just behind her. She turned slightly, acknowledging him with a small nod, nothing more. She didn't flinch under his gaze or try to overcompensate with bravado. Her calmness was unusual in a place where everyone seemed to be either rushing or trying to prove themselves. The chef's curiosity piqued, but he quickly masked it with a stern expression. "I have a challenge for you," he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority that silenced the surrounding kitchen chatter. Everyone paused for a moment to listen. Challenges from the head chef were not common, and when they were given, they were serious. He could see the young woman's eyes flicker slightly, a small sign of acknowledgement but nothing more. She remained calm, attentive, and polite. "You will prepare a dish that most of my staff can't even attempt," he continued. He named a complex recipe that required multiple steps, precise timing, and advanced techniques. It was a dish known for its difficulty. It had even humbled experienced chefs in this very kitchen. For a moment he expected her to hesitate, to falter, to ask for simpler instructions. Instead, she simply nodded once, almost imperceptibly. He raised his eyebrows, almost disappointed that she didn't show any sign of worry. The kitchen staff exchanged quiet whispers. They watched her closely now, a mix of curiosity and skepticism on their faces. How could someone so seemingly unassuming possibly succeed at such a challenging task? Some even shook their heads, whispering doubts. The chef, noticing the doubt in the room, decided to assert his authority even further. He gave a brief demonstration of the dish's key elements, emphasizing the parts that were most likely to go wrong. He watched as she absorbed every word, every gesture, her hands resting calmly at her sides. Time moved quickly. The new chef gathered the ingredients quietly, selecting each item with care. She measured, washed, and prepared everything methodically. She didn't rush, but she didn't waste a single second. Her movements were precise and deliberate, showing a level of familiarity with the kitchen tools that made the head chef frown slightly. Something about her ease seemed out of place. He expected hesitation, fumbling, or mistakes, yet everything she did seemed purposeful and confident. He found himself wondering briefly if he had underestimated her. As she started the cooking, the complexity of the dish became immediately apparent. Multiple pans were used simultaneously, sauces were reduced to perfection, and delicate garnishes required careful attention. The head chef moved around her, offering instructions and corrections in his usual authoritative manner. Each time he spoke, she listened carefully, nodded politely, and continued without missing a beat. Her focus never wavered. The staff began to notice that she wasn't struggling. She was mastering each step with surprising skill. Minutes turned into an hour, and the kitchen's initial skepticism began to shift into quiet amazement. She moved seamlessly between tasks, chopping, stirring, and seasoning with a rhythm that seemed natural. She tasted constantly, adjusted flavors with a subtle hand, and never hesitated to reset a step if it wasn't perfect. Her calm presence seemed to settle the kitchen around her. The clatter and noise continued, but there was now a sense of respect building quietly among the staff. The head chef, initially ready to critique every little movement, found himself speechless at times. He had expected mistakes, delays, or visible panic. Instead, he saw precision, creativity, and an intuitive understanding of flavors. He began to watch more closely, noticing little things, how she timed each step, how she balanced multiple pans, and how she managed the heat and timing so perfectly. It was almost like watching a seasoned professional at work, not someone supposedly new to the kitchen. The staff couldn't help but steal glances. Some quietly commented on her skill, still trying to hide their surprise. Others simply watched in silence, mesmerized by how naturally she handled the task. Even the sous chefs, who had been quietly confident in their abilities, were impressed. They whispered to one another, questioning how someone so quiet and simple in appearance could command such control over the kitchen and the ingredients. As the final stages of the dish approached, the head chef grew more and more tense. He knew the last steps were critical, and he expected her to falter. He hovered close, ready to intervene at the first sign of trouble. The kitchen felt electric with anticipation. Everyone watched the clock, the flames, and her movements, waiting for the moment when chaos would inevitably strike. But it never did. Every element came together flawlessly. Finally, she plated the dish. It was beautiful, even to the most critical eyes. Every component was in its place, every garnish perfectly aligned, every sauce smooth and glossy. The aroma was incredible, filling the kitchen with scents that made everyone pause. The staff leaned in, almost unable to believe what they were seeing. The head chef stepped forward, tasting the first bite. His eyes widened, and for the first time in a long while, he found himself at a loss for words. The flavors were perfectly balanced, the textures precise, and the overall impression beyond anything he had expected. A long silence followed. Then slowly the head chef looked up at the young woman. She had not smiled or shown any sign of triumph. She simply waited, composed and calm, as though this was the most natural outcome in the world. The kitchen staff looked from her to the head chef, their expressions a mix of admiration and disbelief. It was clear that the ordinary-looking young woman had accomplished something extraordinary, and everyone in the room realized that they had misjudged her completely. For the first time, the head chef's expression softened. The stern mask fell slightly, replaced by something that looked like genuine respect. He nodded slowly, acknowledging her skill without a single word of criticism. The kitchen, usually buzzing with tension and competition, now felt lighter, almost celebratory. Everyone recognized that they had witnessed something rare, a talent so refined that appearances could not hint at its existence. And in that moment it became clear that the young woman was not what she seemed at first glance. She had entered the kitchen quietly, almost invisibly, but she had left a mark that no one would forget. The next day, the kitchen was buzzing with its usual energy, but there was a new undercurrent of curiosity and quiet excitement. Everyone remembered what had happened yesterday. The calm, simple-looking woman had taken on a dish that few dared to attempt and had done it perfectly. The memory of her skill lingered in the minds of the staff, and whispers floated through the kitchen like a gentle wind, carrying speculation and admiration. People who had once ignored her now stole glances, wondering who she really was and what else she could do. She arrived quietly, as always, carrying her small notebook and a plain cloth bag. Nothing about her appearance suggested the talent that had stunned the entire kitchen. The staff tried to greet her, offering small smiles or brief nods, but she responded in her gentle, composed manner, acknowledging them politely without seeking attention. Her presence was steady, almost grounding, in a kitchen where chaos could erupt at any moment. The head chef entered with his usual commanding presence, but yesterday's events had changed something in him. He carried an air of curiosity mixed with caution, not quite knowing how to approach this remarkable new talent. He watched her for a moment, noticing the quiet confidence she carried without a word. His mind was already turning with ideas about how to test her further, to see if her brilliance was a one-time occurrence or something deeper. He approached her with a deliberate stride, his expression unreadable. "Today I have something different for you," he said. The kitchen staff paused for a moment, intrigued. The head chef rarely singled anyone out, and when he did, it usually meant high expectations or an unusual challenge. "I want you to handle the new menu item," he continued, naming a dish that was not only complex but required innovation and creativity. It wasn't just about technique. It was about vision, taste, and presentation. The woman's eyes flickered briefly at the description, showing a hint of interest, but she remained composed. She simply nodded and began preparing her ingredients, selecting each one with care. There was no hesitation, no overthinking. She seemed to move as if she already understood the balance of flavors, the timing of the steps, and the final presentation. It was a quiet kind of confidence that did not demand attention but inevitably drew it. As she worked, the other chefs watched more closely than ever. Some leaned over the counters, whispering among themselves, trying to figure out what made her different. They noticed how she tasted carefully at each stage, adjusted subtly, and kept the work area neat even under the pressure of multiple tasks. There was no panic, no loud talk, no hurried gestures. Everything she did seemed intentional, precise, and perfectly timed. The head chef moved around her, offering advice and corrections, partly out of habit and partly to test her. "Be careful with the sauce," he warned. "It can easily separate if not handled properly." She listened, nodded, and adjusted her movements accordingly, but she did not appear flustered or concerned. Every step she took was measured and confident. The staff began to notice the subtlety in her skill, the way she balanced flavors without overwhelming the dish, the way she handled heat and timing without rushing, and the way she made the complicated seem effortless. At one point, a pan nearly slipped from her grip, and the head chef moved to intervene. He expected clumsiness or panic, but she caught it with ease, adjusting it perfectly without spilling a drop. He froze for a moment, realizing that she anticipated issues before they happened. His mind raced, trying to reconcile what he saw with what he thought he knew about her abilities. She was quiet, unassuming, and seemingly ordinary, yet her skill was extraordinary. Other chefs began to approach, some offering suggestions or small comments, testing whether she would falter under social pressure. She absorbed everything, responded politely, and continued seamlessly with her work. The whispers grew louder, tinged with awe. Some chefs even admitted quietly to one another that they had underestimated her entirely. Their assumptions, based purely on her appearance and demeanor, had been completely wrong. The dish required several components to be prepared simultaneously, each with precise timing. The woman managed it all effortlessly. She stirred, chopped, sautéed, and seasoned with a rhythm that made the kitchen seem almost like a dance floor. Flames leapt from skillets, steam curled in the air, and knives moved swiftly. But she navigated it all calmly. Her ability to focus even amid chaos became more apparent with each passing minute. The head chef circled her, occasionally offering comments, but more often observing in silence. He noticed the subtle decisions she made, how she adjusted the heat for one pan while stirring another, how she balanced flavors without overpowering, how she plated each component with care that bordered on artistry. For the first time in his career, he wondered if he could learn from someone he had assumed was inexperienced. The realization unsettled him slightly, but he couldn't deny the truth. As the final stages of the dish approached, tension built in the kitchen. The new menu item was known to be unforgiving. Every element had to be perfect, every flavor balanced, and every presentation meticulous. The staff held their breath as she worked. She didn't rush. She didn't falter. Each step was executed with care, her calm presence grounding the energy of the kitchen. Even the usually confident sous chefs found themselves holding back, watching and learning silently. When she finally began plating, the kitchen fell into a quiet awe. The presentation was elegant and inviting, a testament to both technical skill and aesthetic sense. The colors, textures, and arrangement all spoke of someone who understood not just cooking, but the art of it. The aroma alone made the staff pause, drawing in deep breaths, almost unable to believe what they were witnessing. It was more than cooking. It was a statement, delivered quietly without a word of boastfulness. The head chef approached cautiously, tasting a small portion of the dish. He expected imperfections, but there were none. The flavors were balanced, each component enhancing the others. The textures were perfect, from tender to crisp, and the seasoning was just right. He looked up, searching her face for signs of overconfidence or explanation, but she remained calm and composed. Her gentle expression gave nothing away. He realized that she had done exactly what she intended, and she had done it with mastery. A wave of respect and quiet admiration spread through the kitchen. The staff who had doubted her before now looked at her differently. Their assumptions about appearances and experience were shattered. She had not only handled the challenge but had elevated it, turning a complex and risky task into something flawless and seemingly effortless. Even those who had been skeptical or competitive found themselves inspired, silently acknowledging that true talent often comes in unexpected forms. After a moment, the head chef spoke, his voice softer than usual. "Well done," he said, simple words that carried a weight of respect. It was rare for him to offer praise so openly, and the staff noticed the change. The kitchen, which had been tense and competitive, felt lighter, almost celebratory. Everyone understood that they had witnessed something extraordinary. The woman had not sought recognition or applause. She had simply done what she was capable of, letting her skill speak for itself. The day continued, but the mood had shifted. Chefs moved with a renewed sense of focus and curiosity. They watched her, not with doubt, but with the desire to learn and understand. She remained humble and quiet, offering small smiles and polite nods, never making others feel inferior. Her presence brought a sense of calm authority to the kitchen, a reminder that true skill does not need to shout to be recognized. It existed in action, precision, and quiet confidence. By the end of the day, the staff began to whisper more openly, sharing stories of her previous work, speculating on her background, and expressing amazement at her abilities. No one knew her full story, but everyone knew that she had changed the atmosphere of the kitchen forever. She had taken the challenge of the complex dish, not as a test of ego, but as a natural expression of her talent and understanding. And in doing so, she reminded everyone that appearances could be deceiving, and true mastery often comes quietly, without fanfare. The kitchen had settled into a quiet rhythm after the initial excitement of the new menu challenge. Yet there was an invisible tension lingering in the air. Everyone remembered her flawless execution, and whispers of astonishment continued to float around, even as they prepared for the lunch service. The head chef, who had spent most of his career confident in his judgments, now found himself questioning what he thought he knew about people and talent. That morning, as the staff arrived, the woman walked in with her usual calm demeanor. She carried no air of superiority, no hint of previous fame or accolades. Her quiet presence was almost a grounding force, and even the more anxious chefs seemed to feel calmer around her. People exchanged small smiles and nods, but no one dared interrupt her work. She moved with methodical purpose, checking her ingredients, organizing her station, and making mental notes in her notebook. The head chef approached her again, curiosity and caution mixing in his expression. "I have something special for you today," he said, his voice steady but tinged with interest. "A private challenge. I want to see what you can do without my instructions or interference." The kitchen staff overheard and felt a ripple of anticipation. Private challenges from the head chef were rare, and the implication was clear. He wanted to understand her true skill without guiding her through the process. She acknowledged the challenge with a quiet nod, her expression calm and unbothered. She began to prepare, her movements precise and deliberate. There was no rush, no panic, no need to impress anyone. Her hands moved with confidence and familiarity, selecting ingredients, washing vegetables, trimming meats, and arranging spices with care. The kitchen staff observed in silence, fascinated by the ease and control she displayed. As she worked, the complexity of the task became apparent. The challenge required not just technical skill, but creativity and adaptability. Ingredients had to be combined in unusual ways, timing was critical, and presentation demanded an artistic eye. She approached each step with calm determination, tasting carefully, adjusting flavors subtly, and ensuring that nothing was out of place. It was not a display of ego or pride. It was simply mastery in motion. The head chef watched from a distance, circling occasionally, his skepticism slowly giving way to intrigue. He noted the way she handled the heat, how she managed multiple pans at once, and how she balanced flavors that most chefs would have struggled to harmonize. Each step was executed with a sense of understanding that went beyond simple training. There was a thoughtfulness in her work, a silent dialogue with the ingredients and the kitchen environment, that made the head chef realize he had never seen anything like it. At one point, a minor complication arose. A sauce began to thicken too quickly, threatening to ruin the texture of the dish. The head chef expected panic or a rushed adjustment, but instead she calmly adjusted the heat, added a small amount of liquid, and stirred with patience. Within seconds, the sauce was perfect. He felt a flicker of admiration he had rarely experienced, a mix of surprise and respect. She didn't just know what to do, she anticipated what could go wrong and acted before the problem became critical. Other chefs began to gather closer, unable to resist watching. They whispered quietly among themselves, commenting on her precision and control. Some admitted that they had never seen someone so quiet yet so competent. It was clear that she possessed a level of intuition and skill that went far beyond what they had expected from someone who appeared so simple and unassuming. The kitchen, normally full of clashing personalities and competitive energy, seemed to pause, captivated by her calm mastery. As the challenge progressed, the head chef realized he had underestimated her entirely. His assumptions, based purely on appearances and first impressions, had been completely wrong. She had not only met the technical demands of the dish but had elevated it, adding subtle touches of flavor and presentation that were unexpected and impressive. There was an artistry in her approach, a harmony between technique and creativity that made the dish come alive. When it came time to plate, the woman moved with deliberate care. Each element was placed thoughtfully, the colors and textures complementing one another perfectly. The aroma was inviting, the presentation elegant, and the overall impression striking. The staff watched in silence, unable to hide their amazement. The head chef stepped forward, tasting a small portion of the dish. He expected to find flaws or inconsistencies, but there were none. Every component was perfectly balanced, every flavor harmonious, every texture just right. For the first time, the head chef felt a mix of humility and awe. He looked at her, searching for clues, something that would explain her extraordinary talent, but her expression remained calm, composed, and unassuming. There was no arrogance, no boasting, only the quiet confidence of someone who knew her craft deeply and understood her own abilities. He realized that her skill was genuine and profound, not a fluke or a product of circumstance. The kitchen staff, too, was in a state of quiet revelation. Their doubts and assumptions had been shattered. They recognized that true mastery could exist in unexpected forms, and that appearances were not always a reliable measure of talent. The woman's calm demeanor, once interpreted as simplicity or inexperience, was now seen as a sign of confidence and control. She had changed the way they viewed skill, talent, and potential. After a moment of silence, the head chef spoke, his voice soft but firm. "This is exceptional," he said, offering the first genuine praise he had given all day. The staff watched in surprise, noting the unusual tone of respect and acknowledgement. The woman accepted the compliment with a simple nod, her expression serene. She did not seek approval, and yet her work commanded it effortlessly. The rest of the day continued with a different energy in the kitchen. Chefs moved with renewed focus, observing her techniques, learning from her methods, and quietly adjusting their own approaches. The head chef, who had spent years instructing others, found himself reflecting on what he could learn from her. Her calm presence, meticulous attention to detail, and intuitive understanding of the ingredients and process had left a lasting impression. By the end of the day, the kitchen had shifted. Respect for the woman was unanimous, not out of fear or hierarchy, but from genuine recognition of her talent. She had shown that mastery did not require loud proclamations or displays of ego. Her work spoke for itself, and the impact was profound. The staff began to look at their own skills differently, inspired by her quiet example, and eager to understand how someone could combine precision, creativity, and humility so seamlessly. As she packed up to leave, the head chef lingered, watching her gather her things with the same calm efficiency she had shown all day. He felt a mixture of admiration and curiosity, wondering about her past, her training, and the experiences that had shaped her abilities. She gave a polite nod as she left, her demeanor unchanged, leaving the head chef and the kitchen staff with a sense of awe and a newfound understanding. Talent could be hidden in the most unexpected forms, and true brilliance did not need to announce itself to be recognized. That evening, the whispers continued, but now they were filled with wonder rather than doubt. Chefs shared stories, speculated about her background, and quietly celebrated the example she had set. The woman, unaware of the quiet transformation she had triggered, simply continued her life with grace and focus, letting her actions define her rather than seeking attention or praise. Her presence had changed the kitchen, and her mastery had left an impression that would influence the staff for years to come. The following morning, the kitchen had a different energy. The whispers from the previous days had grown louder, but they carried a tone of admiration rather than doubt. The staff, who had once questioned the new woman's abilities, now watched her every move with quiet respect. Her calm and precise work had already begun to influence the atmosphere, Even the most confident chefs were more careful, more thoughtful, and more attentive in their tasks, inspired by the quiet example she had set. She arrived carrying her notebook and simple bag as usual and began her routine. She did not greet everyone with fanfare, nor did she demand attention. Her presence was quietly commanding, a subtle influence that seemed to settle the room. She checked her station, arranged her ingredients, and began preparing for the day, moving with the same deliberate care that had fascinated her colleagues since her first day. The head chef entered shortly after, and for the first time, he approached her with genuine curiosity and respect. His usual stern demeanor was softened by the recognition of her talent. He had spent years judging others, assuming he knew the limits of skill and potential, but she had proven him wrong. Today he was eager not only to observe her but also to understand what made her so exceptional. "I want you to lead today," he said, his voice steady but carrying a hint of deference. "Guide the team through the new tasting menu." The kitchen staff paused at this instruction, glancing at her with surprise. Leading the team was a responsibility usually reserved for the most experienced chefs, and few had ever been given such trust on a regular day. She looked up, acknowledged the request with a gentle nod, and began to prepare. As she moved through her tasks, the other chefs followed her lead. She gave instructions calmly and clearly, never raising her voice unnecessarily. She demonstrated techniques, explained subtle choices and flavors, and corrected mistakes with patience and kindness. Unlike some leaders, she did not make anyone feel inferior. Her quiet authority drew respect naturally, and the team responded with focus and cooperation. Throughout the day, she balanced multiple tasks simultaneously, just as she had done in the challenges before. She managed timing, taste, and presentation with seamless precision. Her influence on the kitchen was palpable. The usual tension and chaos were replaced with a sense of flow and collaboration. The staff began to understand that she was not simply skilled at cooking. She had a way of bringing out the best in those around her. At one point, a junior chef made a mistake with a delicate sauce. Normally, this would have caused frustration or panic. Instead, she calmly approached, demonstrated the correct technique, and guided the junior chef through the adjustment without criticism. The result was a perfectly balanced sauce, and the junior chef's confidence was restored. Others observed and learned, realizing that leadership was not about authority alone, but about guidance, patience, and example. The head chef moved around the kitchen, watching closely. He noticed how her approach differed from his own. She focused not on asserting control, but on empowering others, creating a harmony that allowed everyone to perform at their best. He reflected on his own methods, realizing that he had often relied on pressure and criticism to achieve results. Watching her, he understood that true mastery included not just technical skill, but the ability to inspire, teach, and lead. Throughout the day, she introduced small touches of creativity to the menu, subtle adjustments that elevated the dishes without overpowering the original vision. Each addition was thoughtful, measured, and designed to enhance rather than dominate. The staff began to experiment alongside her, incorporating her guidance and learning to trust their own instincts within the framework she had set. The kitchen had transformed from a place of strict hierarchy and competition into one of collaboration and mutual respect. As the final service approached, the head chef called her aside briefly. "You have a rare gift," he said quietly, almost as if he were confessing a realization to himself. "Not just in cooking, but in how you influence the kitchen. I underestimated you." She smiled gently, neither boasting nor offering excuses. Her calm presence conveyed that she had never sought recognition, only to do her work with care and integrity. The evening service began, and the tasting menu was executed flawlessly. Each dish was prepared with precision, plated with elegance, and served with care. The staff moved like a well-rehearsed team, following her lead, adjusting seamlessly to changes and maintaining high standards throughout. The patrons noticed the subtle difference too. The food was not only delicious but seemed to carry a sense of cohesion and thoughtfulness that elevated the dining experience. After the service, the kitchen settled into a quiet reflection. The staff, usually tired and tense at the end of a long day, lingered a little longer, discussing the new approaches they had observed and the techniques they had learned. The head chef remained, watching her quietly, realizing that her influence had extended beyond the food itself. She had changed the way the team thought, worked and collaborated. For the first time, he considered asking her to stay permanently, to mentor the entire staff, and to bring her methods to the forefront of the kitchen's culture. Her calm authority, precision, and creativity had proven invaluable. More than that, she had shown that leadership and mastery were not about appearances or titles. They were about understanding, patience, and the ability to bring out the best in others. As she packed up to leave, she moved with the same quiet efficiency she had always shown. The staff watched, inspired and respectful. The head chef lingered, reflecting on the lessons of the day. He realized that she had done more than cook a complex menu. She had changed the culture of the kitchen, reshaping how people interacted, learned, and performed. That evening, the staff discussed her work with renewed admiration. They shared observations, learned from her methods, and quietly recognized that they had been privileged to witness a master at work. She had not sought praise or recognition, yet her influence was undeniable. Through her calm, precise, and thoughtful approach, she had transformed a busy kitchen into a place of collaboration, learning, and excellence. As she left, the head chef thought about the impact she had made, not just on the kitchen, but on himself and everyone who worked there. He understood that true mastery included not just skill, but humility, patience, and the ability to inspire others quietly. The kitchen would never be the same, and he felt a deep sense of respect and gratitude for the lessons she had brought. The woman, as always, simply walked away, leaving behind a legacy of skill, grace, and quiet brilliance that would be remembered and carried forward by everyone who had the privilege of working alongside her. The kitchen had changed. The energy that once carried tension and silent competition now moved with quiet harmony. The staff, once skeptical, now carried a shared respect for the woman who had quietly transformed their environment. Her influence was not just in the way she cooked, but in how she inspired each chef to be more careful, thoughtful, and confident in their work. That morning, as usual, she arrived quietly, carrying only her small bag and notebook. She greeted no one loudly, spoke in soft tones, and began her routine with calm efficiency. Each movement was deliberate and intentional. There was a serenity in her work that seemed to ripple through the kitchen, settling nerves and focusing attention. The staff watched, learning and adjusting their own methods, influenced by her example. The head chef entered soon after, observing her quietly before speaking. He had learned to appreciate her subtlety, her patience, and the quiet power of her skill. "We have a new tasting menu to prepare," he said, but there was no challenge or test in his tone this time. Instead, there was an unspoken understanding. He trusted her to lead, to inspire, and to ensure that the team worked in harmony. She nodded, acknowledging the task, and began coordinating the kitchen without fanfare or show. She moved through the kitchen with calm authority, delegating tasks, guiding junior chefs, and adjusting techniques as needed. Her instructions were precise and gentle, encouraging rather than demanding. The team responded naturally, flowing with her guidance, confident that her suggestions were thoughtful and accurate. The kitchen worked as one organism, each member anticipating the needs of the others, a rhythm that had been impossible before her arrival. Throughout the day, she demonstrated not only her own mastery, but also how to bring out the best in others. She guided a young chef through a tricky preparation, showing patience and offering encouragement. When a mistake occurred, she used it as a teaching moment rather than a reason for frustration. Each correction was quiet, measured, and constructive, leaving the chef feeling supported rather than criticized. By the end of the shift, even the most inexperienced staff had grown more confident, their skills subtly improved by her guidance. The head chef observed closely, reflecting on how much had changed in such a short time. He realized that his previous assumptions about talent and leadership had been limited. True mastery, he saw now, was not just about technical skill. It was about patience, understanding, and the ability to inspire others without force or ego. She embodied these qualities effortlessly, changing the culture of the kitchen through her quiet example. Later, during the busiest part of service, she managed multiple dishes simultaneously, guiding the team while maintaining impeccable standards herself. Her movements were fluid, efficient, and precise, almost meditative in their rhythm. Flames leapt from skillets, sauces simmered, and ingredients were prepared with care, all under her calm supervision. The kitchen staff, once tense and competitive, now worked in harmony, each member confident in their role and supported by her guidance. A difficult order arrived unexpectedly, a last-minute request from a demanding customer. Normally, this would have thrown the kitchen into chaos. Instead, she remained calm, quickly assessing the situation, delegating tasks, and adjusting techniques as needed. Each dish was completed on time, perfectly cooked, and beautifully presented. The staff marveled at how seamlessly she handled the pressure, maintaining composure and focus while keeping everyone else synchronized and confident. After service, the kitchen settled into quiet reflection. The staff shared observations, discussed techniques, and celebrated the day's success. The head chef approached her privately, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You have done more than cook," he said softly. "You have changed the way this kitchen operates. I misjudged you, and I am grateful for the lesson you have given all of us." She responded with a gentle nod, her calm demeanor unaltered by praise. She did not seek recognition. She had simply done what she was capable of, letting her skill and example speak for themselves. Word of her presence began to spread quietly outside the kitchen. Patrons noticed the subtle difference in the meals, the harmony of flavors, and the care in presentation. Food critics, curious about the new energy in the restaurant, began to ask questions, intrigued by reports of a mysterious chef whose dishes were both technically perfect and deeply satisfying. Yet she remained humble, working quietly behind the scenes, focused on her craft rather than fame or attention. The staff continued to learn from her every day. Junior chefs grew more confident, experimenting under her guidance. Experienced chefs adjusted their techniques, inspired by her approach to balance, timing, and flavor. The kitchen had transformed from a place of individual competition to a community of collaboration, all influenced by her quiet example and mastery. The head chef, reflecting on the change, recognized that she had given more than technical skill to the kitchen. She had brought patience, empathy, and a model of leadership that relied on understanding and encouragement rather than authority alone. She had shown that mastery was not just about personal ability, but about elevating those around you, creating an environment